You were trained to be useful, not valuable, and this training began so early that you never questioned it. As a child, you were praised when you obeyed, when you followed instructions, when you memorized answers already known. Slowly, silently, you learned a dangerous lesson, that your worth depends on how well you fit into someone else's system. Nobody asked you what you loved. Nobody asked you what made you feel alive. They asked only one thing: can you follow the rules? And you became very good at it. Society does not need awakened people, it needs reliable ones. It needs people who arrive on time, leave on time, repeat the same task again and again, and never ask why. You were shaped to be a tool, polished and efficient. Useful people are rewarded with survival, salary, security, just enough comfort to continue. But money does not move toward usefulness, it moves toward value. Value is rare. Value is creative. Value is alive. Look around and you will see the contradiction everywhere. A man who works in the sun all day earns less than a man who sits in front of a screen and speaks his thoughts. A woman who gives her whole life to teaching children struggles to pay rent, while someone who entertains millions online earns more in a single video than she will in years. This is not injustice, it is a reflection of how the world rewards impact, not effort. Effort is common, impact is rare. You were never taught to create value, you were taught to deliver it. You exchange your hours, your energy, your youth, and in return you receive money that barely allows you to rest before repeating the cycle. This creates a deep frustration inside you. You feel tired not only in the body but in the soul. You begin to ask, why am I working so hard and still standing in the same place? The answer is simple but uncomfortable. Because hard work inside a small container remains small. Value is born when you express your uniqueness, but uniqueness was discouraged in you. You were told not to stand out, not to question, not to disturb the order. Slowly you learned to hide your originality because it felt unsafe. And the moment you hide what is original, you hide what is valuable. The market pays for solutions, for insight, for creativity, for courage. It does not pay for repetition. Machines repeat better than humans ever will. Observe how the world has changed. Knowledge is everywhere now. Information is cheap. What is expensive is perspective. What is rare is authenticity. People do not pay because you work hard. They pay because you solve something they cannot. They pay because you see what they do not see. And this seeing does not come from obedience. It comes from awareness. You may feel fear hearing this because it means responsibility returns to you. You can no longer blame luck, destiny, or circumstances alone. It means you must look within and ask, what do I have that is alive, that is mine, that cannot be copied? This question is frightening because the answer demands courage. To live from value means to risk being misunderstood. To be valuable means to step out of the crowd. Understand this deeply. You are not poor because you lack effort. You are poor because your effort has been disconnected from your essence. The moment effort and essence meet, work becomes expression, and expression becomes value. When you move from being a replaceable part to an irreplaceable presence, money begins to recognize you. You were trained to survive. Now you must learn to create. Survival asks for obedience. Creation asks for awareness, and awareness is the true beginning of wealth. You were taught to fear money long before you ever touched it. Not directly, not openly, but through subtle messages repeated so often that they sank into your unconscious. You heard that money is dirty, that rich people are selfish, that spirituality and wealth cannot live together. You watched stories where the poor were shown as pure and the wealthy as corrupt. Slowly a strange idea entered your mind that to have money something must be wrong with you. So you learned to desire money and reject it at the same time. On the surface you say you want abundance. Deep inside you feel guilt at the thought of having more than others. This inner contradiction becomes a silent barrier. You work, you struggle, you push, but the flow never feels natural. Money comes perhaps, but it slips away quickly, as if it never intended to stay. Look closely at your thoughts when you see someone wealthy. Do you feel inspiration or irritation? Do you feel curiosity or judgment? These reactions reveal your conditioning. Money responds not to your words but to your inner atmosphere. If your inner world is full of resentment, fear and shame around wealth, money senses it and keeps its distance. You may have noticed a strange pattern. Some people earn more yet remain anxious, others earn less yet feel at peace. This shows that money itself is not the problem. The problem is the relationship you have built with it. When money becomes a source of fear, it controls you. When it becomes a source of guilt, you sabotage yourself. When it becomes a source of worship, you lose your balance. Money asks for neither fear nor devotion. It asks for clarity. Observe how children behave with money. They do not judge it. They do not moralize it. For them it is simply a means to enjoy life. But adults burden money with ideas, labels and beliefs. These beliefs become chains. Many people unconsciously push money away because it threatens their identity. If you were taught that struggling makes you noble, then ease feels wrong. If you were praised for sacrifice, then abundance feels like betrayal. There is also fear of freedom hidden beneath this conditioning. Money brings choices, and choices bring responsibility. Poverty allows you to blame circumstances. Wealth removes excuses. This is why many people remain stuck. Not because they cannot rise, but because rising demands awareness. It demands that you stand alone without the comfort of complaint. Data supports this inner truth. Studies on financial behavior show that people with negative beliefs about money often earn less over time, even when skills and opportunities are equal. They underprice themselves. They avoid growth. They feel uncomfortable receiving. The mind becomes the ceiling long before income does. Understand this clearly. Money is not spiritual or unspiritual. It is neutral energy. It magnifies who you already are. In unconscious hands, it creates chaos. In conscious hands, it creates possibilities. To reject money is not spirituality, it is confusion. To chase money blindly is not intelligence, it is greed. Awareness walks in the middle. When you make peace with money, something shifts. You stop begging life and start cooperating with it. You stop feeling small when you receive. You stop feeling proud when you give. Money becomes a tool, not a judge. You use it, but you are not used by it. The moment you drop the old conditioning, you will feel lighter. You will notice opportunities you ignored before. You will speak with more confidence. You will ask for what you are worth without shame. And slowly, silently, money will begin to respond, not because you chased it, but because you no longer pushed it away. Freedom begins the day you stop seeing money as an enemy and stop seeing yourself as unworthy. When fear dissolves, flow begins. You have been taught to trade your time as if time were endless, as if tomorrow were guaranteed, as if your life were an unlimited resource. From the very beginning you were told that this is how earning works. Give your hours, receive money. The longer you stay, the more loyal you are, the harder you push your body and mind, the more deserving you become. Slowly this idea became so normal that you never stopped to question it. You accepted it as truth. But look carefully. Time is the only thing you truly own, and it is the only thing you are constantly losing. Every breath that enters is one breath closer to the end. Yet you sell this most precious resource cheaply, often without awareness. You wake up tired, you return home exhausted, and you tell yourself, this is life. In reality, this is not life, this is survival on autopilot. If time were money, the poorest person would be the one who has no free hours, yet society calls him hard-working and respectable. The richest person would be the one who has time, space, and choice, yet society often calls him lazy. This confusion has kept millions trapped. They are busy all day but going nowhere. They are moving constantly but not arriving. Observe the strange arithmetic of effort. A man working 10 hours a day earns just a little more than one working 8. A woman adding extra shifts still struggles at the end of the month. Yet there are people whose income continues even when they sleep, travel, or rest. This is not magic. It is simply a different relationship with time. One sells presents. The other creates systems. One is paid once, the other is paid repeatedly. You were never told that there are ways to earn without constantly being present. You were not taught about leverage, about scale, about creation that lives beyond the Creator. You were taught safety, not freedom. Safety keeps you alive. Freedom allows you to live. But freedom feels risky, and fear prefers the familiar cage to the unknown sky. Deep inside, this way of living creates a quiet sadness. You feel that life is slipping through your fingers. You postpone joy, telling yourself that one day when there is enough money, you will rest, travel, love, and laugh. But that day keeps moving forward, always just out of reach. You trade today for a promise that tomorrow may not fulfill. Data from modern work patterns shows a clear truth. People who detach income from hours eventually surpass those who don't, even if they start slower. Creators, investors, business builders, these people build something once and let it serve many times. Time workers build nothing that survives them. When they stop, everything stops. This is not a judgment, it is a simple observation. Ask yourself honestly, if you stopped working for 6 months, what would happen to your income? The answer to this question reveals your level of freedom. Most people avoid asking it because the truth is uncomfortable. It shows how fragile their security really is. They are one illness, one crisis, one pause away from collapse. But understand this with compassion. You were not wrong, you were uninformed. You did what you were taught. Now awareness is knocking. Awareness asks you to see that time is sacred. To waste it unconsciously is the greatest poverty. When you begin to respect your time, you naturally begin to seek ways where your effort multiplies instead of repeats. This does not mean you stop working. It means your work changes its quality. You move from exhaustion to intention, from repetition to creation, from running on a wheel to building a path. When effort creates something that lasts, time becomes your ally instead of your enemy. The moment you realize that life is not meant to be sold hour by hour, something inside you wakes up. You stop asking, how can I work more, and start asking, how can I work wiser? In that shift, a new relationship with money is born, one rooted not in sacrifice but in intelligence and respect for life itself. You have been living according to a script written by others, and because everyone around you follows it, you never suspected it was optional. From the moment you could understand words, you were told what success looks like, what failure means, and what is considered respectable. Study hard, choose a safe path, settle down, and do not ask too many questions. This script was not created to awaken you, it was created to manage you. You followed it faithfully, believing that obedience would bring peace. Instead, it brought restlessness. Somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice kept whispering that something was missing. But the noise of expectations was louder. Family, society, tradition. They all spoke together, and your inner voice learned to stay silent. You began to trust approval more than intuition. This is how disconnection begins. You live a life that looks correct from the outside but feels empty on the inside. You achieve what you were told to achieve, yet fulfillment does not arrive. Many people reach their goals only to discover that the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. And then confusion arises. If I did everything right, why do I feel so wrong? The truth is simple but unsettling. Society rewards conformity, not authenticity. It values predictability over passion. Your inner intelligence, however, is unpredictable. It moves toward what excites you, what scares you, what feels alive. That is why it was discouraged. A society built on control cannot afford too many people listening inwardly. Look at the people who seem most alive. They often appear strange and conventional, sometimes even irresponsible. They did not fit easily into the script. They followed curiosity instead of instructions. At first they were doubted. Later they were admired. The same people who were warned against become the examples others quote. There is also fear in listening to yourself, because it means you must take responsibility for your choices. Following society's script gives you an excuse. If things go wrong, you can say, I did what everyone told me to do. Listening to your inner intelligence removes that shelter. Success becomes yours, but so does failure. Freedom is beautiful, but it is demanding. Real-life stories confirm this again and again. Many entrepreneurs, artists, and innovators describe a moment when they felt torn between safety and inner truth. Those who ignored that inner pull often describe decades of quiet regret. Those who listened describe fear at the beginning, but deep satisfaction later, not because life became easy, but because it became meaningful. Your inner intelligence is not loud. It does not shout like society does. It speaks softly, in moments of silence, curiosity, and excitement. It shows itself when time disappears, when you feel fully present, when effort turns into joy. These are not accidents, they are signals, but to hear them, you must slow down. When you constantly chase approval, you live in comparison, and comparison is a thief. It steals your joy, your originality, and your courage. You begin to measure your life against standards that were never meant for you. A fish comparing itself to a bird will always feel like a failure. The moment you begin to trust your inner intelligence, something shifts. Decisions feel lighter. You stop forcing yourself into roles that do not fit. You may lose some approval, but you gain self-respect. And self-respect has a strange power. It attracts the right people, the right work, the right opportunities. Money too responds to authenticity. When you move in alignment, your actions carry clarity. You speak differently. You choose differently. You create differently. The world senses this coherence. Value arises naturally from it, not as a strategy, but as a reflection of inner harmony. You were not born to fulfill a script. You were born to explore, to express, to discover. When you stop living by borrowed ideas and start living by inner understanding, life stops feeling like a burden and starts feeling like a dialogue, and in that dialogue, abundance finds its own way to you. You keep waiting for the day when you will finally feel ready. You tell yourself that you need more knowledge, more confidence, more certainty. You believe that once everything is clear, once fear disappears, once conditions are perfect, you will begin. This waiting feels responsible, intelligent, even mature. But slowly, silently, it becomes a prison. Days turn into months, months into years, and life keeps moving while you prepare. Readiness is a myth created by fear. Fear does not want to stop you openly, it wants to delay you politely. It whispers, not now, learn a little more, observe a little longer. And because this voice sounds reasonable, you obey it. You do not realize that confidence is not something you collect before action. Confidence is something that is born through action. Look at your own life. Think of anything you are good at today. You were once unprepared for it. You learned by doing, by failing, by adjusting. Walking, speaking, riding a bicycle, none of these waited for readiness. Life pushed you forward, and intelligence followed. But when it comes to money, purpose, or expression, you suddenly demand guarantees. You want certainty in an uncertain universe. This hesitation creates a deep inner conflict. You feel potential inside you, but it remains unused. This unused potential becomes frustration. Frustration turns into self-doubt, and self-doubt slowly eats away your energy. You start comparing yourself with those who began earlier, those who dared sooner. You call them lucky, but luck is simply movement without permission. Research in psychology shows that action precedes clarity in most meaningful change. People who wait for perfect understanding rarely start, while those who begin with partial understanding learn faster and grow stronger. Movement creates feedback. Feedback creates wisdom. Wisdom creates direction. Waiting creates nothing. There is also fear of being seen. When you act, you become visible. When you are visible, you can be judged. Preparation allows you to hide behind learning. Action exposes you. This exposure feels dangerous because it threatens your image. But growth has never respected image. It respects honesty. It respects courage. Notice how life itself functions. A seed does not wait to know the whole tree before breaking the soil. It moves with trust. Rain falls without asking where each drop will land. Rivers flow without certainty of the ocean, yet they reach it. Only the human mind demands guarantees before living. And in demanding them, it misses life. You may say, I am afraid of failure. But failure is not the real fear. The real fear is discovering your own power. Because once you see it, you cannot go back to excuses. Action removes the comfort of victimhood. It hands you responsibility. Responsibility is heavy, but it is also liberating. Every step you avoid today will demand 10 steps tomorrow. Momentum is fragile in the beginning, but once it forms, it carries you. The hardest part is the first imperfect move. Not because it is difficult, but because it breaks your identity as someone who is still preparing. It forces you to become someone who is participating. When you begin without readiness, something magical happens. You become alert. Your intelligence sharpens. Opportunities appear that you could not see while waiting. People respond differently to you because you respond differently to life. Even mistakes become teachers instead of wounds. Life does not reward perfection. It rewards presence. It rewards those who show up with sincerity, even trembling. The moment you stop waiting and start moving, fear loses its grip. Not because it disappears, but because it no longer decides for you. Action is not the end of fear. It is the beginning of freedom. You are not failing at life. You are simply playing a game you were never taught the rules of. When you shift from obedience to awareness, effort to value, fear to alignment, time selling to impact creation,